there are a lot of different things people think of when they hear the name Supermicro right now. One is probably the fact that they are currently being investigated by the Department of Justice for financial malpractice. There's a whistleblower alleging that they rehired accountants who were responsible in part for messing with numbers that they got fined for a number of years ago. I don't know all the details, but my understanding is that they were fined pretty substantially and even delisted as a company on this, in exchanges for messing with numbers. Pretty substantially. Nothing like Enron scale, right? But it was a pretty big deal. And that person is alleging that those people were rehired fairly shortly after that happened. Some of the people involved, not all of them, but also there are allegations that they are counting orders in the future. For example, ordering product in, let's say, 2025 as revenue current, like in quarters when it shouldn't be counted, and you're not supposed to do that because you haven't actually sold it yet, technically. That's my understanding of the situation. So that's one side. Another side is just how extreme the run-up has been. I mean, even as early as the 3rd of January, it looks like, on this one-year chart, it's run up. It ran up to 116. It did a 10-for-1 split recently, if you're confused by the numbers. I woke up one morning, looked at my stock app, and I about crapped my pants because I noticed that I lost 10% of the value on the shares of SMCI that I hold. But that wasn't actually the case. It did do a 10-for-1 split, right? But it's just run up an insane amount. And if you look at anything past the 5-year chart, it's even more so. I mean, you could have gotten shares $2, 2 to 102, 2 to 122 at the peak, right? That is insane. That is, if you count these peaks, it's went up way more than Nvidia, and it's not particularly close. I saw a chart with it mimicked with Nvidia, and it was beating it. It's Nvidia. Actually, you would perform better now that it's down near 45 level, but even then, the stock has gone up a crazy amount, and the PE ratio is low. We'll get into that a bit later, but that is certainly something people look at, right? I personally got in around 443 and sold a few shares around this range. I did not time the tippity top because I cannot see the future. But that's when I was starting to be like, literally my shares in 3 weeks went up 150 percent, which is dramatic. I mean, I didn't know anything. Actually, I heard about the stock on a subreddit, someone complaining about how much it's gone up and how they missed the boat on it. Isn't that funny, right? Which I do not trade, I invest. I looked at the company, I'm like, I think it's still decently fairly valued even after the huge run up, because it jumped like 40% in one day, 30 to 40, I believe. Yeah, but it just kept going up. People started to hear about it. It was low. So what does SMCI do? Maybe you don't even know. SMCI primarily sells infrastructure for AI data centers in general, but specifically they've done really well with AI data centers. So using NVIDIA GPUs, right? AMD, I believe they do that as well. And they're really trying to strongly pivot into liquid cooling. I personally work in a pseudo data center. It's actually a Bitcoin mine, which is the same thing, right? It's just Bitcoin mining computers. So other than being used for LLMs and AI stuff, it's just used for Bitcoin stuff. And primarily, infrastructure is super important, but we don't use liquid cooling. But I've seen liquid cooling. We have used a bit of liquid cooling, but it was more of a test than it was a full-on operation. And I can understand why they see it's the future, but anyways, that's a little bit of a side tangent. But people really get confused about how something like this could be valuable, just infrastructure. But it really is key, because poor, faulty infrastructure costs these businesses, not drastically, but it does. If you get really bad infrastructure, it will cost you on the profit margin in the form of percents, easily. I mean, our business is small, but it costs us 5-10% of revenue, so off the profit margin. Just bad infrastructure, things overheat, things are in bad spots, they aren't getting enough airflow, for example, right? Or it's hard to work with. It takes time to replace things, to get around, to move, to maintenance when things have to be shut down and cleaned. It's just infrastructure, if it's not important, is a nightmare. Now, is SMCI ever going to be as valuable as like an NVIDIA? Absolutely not, right? But if they're fairly valued, there's money to be made. So let's get into the article. Thank you for the ads. So the title is Supermicro says it's shipping 100,000 GPUs per quarter. Stock jumps. I like how it's just stock jumps is the entire sentence, right? Supermicro rallied Monday after the server company announced it's shipping more than 100,000 graphics processing units per quarter. SMCI stock rose 15.8% to close at 447.74. So this was, I believe this video is coming out on Wednesday. This was on Monday, so I'm a little bit late to the news, but it's the information is still valid. It's something to look forward to. It's something to piece in. I think personally they released this just because of such of the bad PR they've been getting as of recent, right? They've just been getting destroyed with all the shorting and the whistleblower and the panic that comes along with it. The shares were up a fraction in late trading. Supermicro recently deployed the GPUs with liquid cooling solution for some of the largest AI factories ever built. The company said in a statement, the San Jose, California-based company said it is currently shipping over 100,000 GPUs per quarter. Now, what that correlates to revenue, I'm not quite sure. I tried to look in their recent financial statements about, GPU, because they fit a number of GPUs in the racks. I believe that's how that works. So they don't really have one GPU equals X amount of dollars. And I think they have varying, racks and varying infrastructure. So that may be different depending on how much. Supermicro continues to innovate, delivering full data center plug-and-play rack-scale liquid cooling solutions. That sounds complicated, but plug-and-play, I would assume that's, it ships, you plug it in and it works. Rack-scale liquid cooling solutions. I'm curious what kind it is. I know that's a bit in the weeds, but I'm curious if they use like a type of oil. I'm assuming it's a type of oil. The one thing with liquid cooling is it's a lot harder to work with. It's more efficient. Clearly, I think that's why they're trying to do it, because it uses a lot less energy than air, right? Or even, I don't know. I mean, I know they use a lot of water oftentimes. Where I'm from, there's quite a few data centers, and there's controversy because of the amount of water they use. But the stock rally marked a huge comeback for SMCI stock, which crashed late last month on a report that was target of the Justice Department investigation. That'll do it. The DOJ was reportedly looking into alleged accounting irregularities after an activist short-selling firm published a report. Yes, I believe this came to be after someone. I've tried to dig in as much as I can, and no one truly knows, because the person hasn't come out. There's no concrete. There's nothing super concrete. There's a lot of rumors rolling around. Anyways, let's dive a bit more into what I think right now. So personally, I'm going to be full disclosure, right? I do own Supermicro, but I've sold enough that if my shares went to zero, if this company went bankrupt, I wouldn't really lose anything. Yeah, I'd lose the money I have positioned into Supermicro. Excuse me, but if it went to zero, I would still, having factored in I already invested and sold some out up substantially, I wouldn't really lose anything, right? Some people hate that term. It's like, well, your money's in it and you lose it. But you all know that sometimes investing can play with emotions. So oftentimes it's easier to just keep your head and view things the way that's best, right? Because if you have $1 million in and the market starts to crash and then you lose 40%, which happens, it does, even in the S&P 500, that if you are invested your entire life, that will happen, right? So losing $400,000, that for a lot of people is hard to cope with. It's hard to even fathom. So, but personally, I'm not really sweating holding these shares. I think with the amount of product they're actually selling out and the price, the PE is 22. I think the forward PE is closer to 13 or 12. I believe we can see it over here. Yeah, forward PE of 14. So a little bit more than I thought, but still, that for a company that is, if they are telling the truth, growing as much as they are saying, which it would be hard to, I don't know, it's definitely possible. I don't see it being, but I'm assuming I'm assuming what happened is they rehired some of those people and they were fine, but it's just, you shouldn't do that, right? You can't rehire the people that already did. That's just, so they're going to get fined a couple $100 million. It'll be a big deal for a quarter or two, and then it'll dissipate. That's what I personally believe. Now, if you think the DOJ is going to uncover that this company's doing highly illegal stuff, absolutely avoid this company. Also, if you are someone that does not have a strong stomach, also do not invest in this company. It'll jump and go down and go up and go down and go up. Yeah, I would avoid it in that case, but I think the value you're getting it at and just the amount that they're saying they're going to grow, I believe it's, personally for me, I don't mind keeping my shares in, but I also understand a lot of people who had money in around these levels poured a lot in. There's some disaster stories I want to go through eventually that I've seen on Reddit and the like, because it really is bad when things happen like that. And also when you're over leveraged, you should never over leverage into a company. Also, the amount of money I have in SMCI is probably 3 to 4% of my overall portfolio, which isn't huge anyways. That doesn't include retirement or 401k or anything, just my personal investing. So I'm not too worried about this personally, but I understand conflicting opinions on it. I see the side of it. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But personally, I think a fair value of this company, assuming there was no DOJ, right, just the financial side, I think it would be close to 600, if not higher. And if they keep doing well, I don't see why I can't. 600, excuse me, after the split. So 60, right, because it's split. I'm still used to the old numbers. I think 60 to 62, I would be comfortable buying it, assuming they weren't investigated, right? So, but yeah, I wouldn't position too much of my portfolio in this. But anyways, I think that's all I got for this company today and that news. I think it's important that they ship these, but I don't know if it's really gonna, they're gonna sell product, right? Assuming they're being truthful. So it really just comes down to the accounting stuff, and we aren't gonna know probably for months, many months. So if you like this sort of thing, high risk, high reward. If you like investing stocks, like even like a Rivian, right, where if they make it, if they survive, the stock's gonna shoot up 3x, 4x, 5x, 6x, right? But there's also a good chance it could get absolutely, go bankrupt, right? Because they aren't making money right now. SMCI is like that, where there's that chance, right? Whatever it may be. I'm not going to put the percent in your head, whatever you believe it is, that they get destroyed, right? Or if not, they're going to go up in the long term 2-3 times, right? Maybe 20. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised if they said, yep, everything's good if it shot up to 600 almost immediately, which sounds so extreme. But this thing, I mean, some of these days, I think one of these days it was up 6% and then on the day, and then ended up closing like 23% down or something crazy like that. I've never seen a stock that jumps so dramatically. I mean, it was up 15%, then fell 5% the next day. Like, and that's just like nothing for it. So, anyways, that's all I have for this video. If you guys enjoyed, I'd appreciate if you left a like. If not, whatever it may be, but I appreciate you guys watching. So, I'll catch you next time.